Hi, it's Dr. Russ, and today we have our friend Brance on the table. We got a few things we want to do with him today. First of all is check out his right hamstring. So Brance is an avid soccer player and was doing some running, and he's coming up with a little tightness and a little pain in the proximal hamstring. So we want to check that out. And right here, it's kind of already showing me a little bit of a trigger point. So we're not quite done evaluating, but that's a good start. And as I press here on the bone where the hamstring attaches, Brance, is that painful?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not on the attachment, which is good. It's a little bit more in this section here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and further down?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and as I come kind of in the middle of it, right there as well, or not as much?
Not as much there.
Okay, so this section here.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to come back to that. Anytime we're working on the hamstring, we want to look at both the knee and the hip because the hamstring crosses both of those joints. So feeling for a nice smooth roll and glide of the tibia on the femur. There's a little click in there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was only that one time. And we always want to see just a few degrees of rotation of the tibia under the femur as well. And nice movement of the proximal tib-fib joint. So that all feels pretty good. And so I'm going to come up here and feel the hip. And it's a little bit tight here in the ball and socket of his hip. I can do a little SI evaluation just by, can we get close here? Palpating his, just by palpating his SI joint and giving his leg just a little bit of a lift and a little shake. I want to feel nice joint play right here through the SI and also through the lumbosacral joint, which I do feel. So it is really pretty much confined to his hip joint and his proximal, I would say, a quarter of the hamstring. So we're feeling this trigger point and we're going to want to work it pretty thoroughly, but gently. We don't want to go too deep. You could see his muscle development is pretty good, so there's plenty to work with, and we don't need to press very hard to engage that tissue. It's pretty superficial. Got to remember the sciatic nerve is in there, and we don't ever want to press and grind on the nerve tissue. Feeling for movement between that superficial fascia and the deep fascia, and then feeling for movement between the deep fascia and the muscle. And right here, I feel like I've been able to engage some of this fascia in the inner thigh. And as I'm pressing forward with my right hand and kind of pulling that fascia toward me, we're getting a little space around that hamstring. And we're getting a nice relaxation response through that muscle. So let's see how that hip feels now. A little easier in the rotation. So I'm always wondering, like, why did this hamstring get irritated? Was there one movement that did it? Was there, like he went to kick the ball and just gave a little bit of a rapid stretch to that muscle that caused it to clamp down? Or is it reacting to and responding to something that's going on in a nearby joint? And so what I'm feeling is in the posterior hip, this deep, small muscle under the gluteal muscle trigger point. Feels like it might be one of the obturators or the gemellis, and those can really jam up the hip. So here I'm inducing some nice rocking of the hip, and with my thumb creating some counter movement on that deep fascia in the gluteal area. Nice deep breath. Good. And let it out. Good. Okay, so we're just going to visit that section one more time. And as I do, I'm glad I'm here because I'm feeling something I wasn't quite picking up on before, where here's the tendon of his hamstring right here. And here is the back of the lateral quadriceps, the vastus lateralis. It actually really wraps around the thigh And it inserts on the posterior part of the femur, and that's kind of stuck. Is that tender there, Brance?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, as usual, I'm just trying to gently induce some differential glide, a little relative movement between these layers. So my traction with my middle finger here is up, and you can see I'm using my other hand to get just a few degrees of rotation of his femur while I'm tractioning that muscle. So that's going to give me a little separation between his hamstring tendon and the big belly of this vastus lateralis muscle. Deep breath for me, and let it out. Good, and really drop your foot for me so that I have it. Beautiful, beautiful. People always wanting to help by holding their leg for you, but that's not really helpful. We can see a little bit of a twitch response right there, trigger point. And what muscle that is, I'm not sure. Based on its location and fiber orientation, I might call that the quadratus femoris. Definitely below, well below the piriformis, running more or less horizontally. So that might be what we're working with. Again, being cognizant of the sciatic nerve being right there. Okay, so that's moving a little better, and we're going to follow that down. And here's another one, little area of adhesion here. And here I would say we're very much at the bottom end of the gluteus maximus here, whereas his would come starting on the sacrum and ilium, and the lower border of that attachment is going to be right here. And that hooks right into the posterior part of the IT band, and that's going to have influence on the whole lower extremity. This is a very important spot. So my pressure is really not in very much. It's not down. It's much more superior. So tractioning superior with my fingers while I roll the femur. Yeah, that was a nice little piece of mobilization that just happened. And this may be sore tomorrow. Nothing. It's sore already. Nothing to worry about. Okay, good. So again, let's check that hip mobility. It's nice. It's a good jiggle. Knees moving well. We'll give a tiny bit of traction here to the extremity. Good. Nice. And as I do this, I want to feel, there's usually a little bit more tension on the medial side of the ankle because that tibialis anterior tendon is so thick and so strong. But I like to feel that traction really being translated pretty evenly all the way up into the lumbar spine, which I do. So that feels pretty good.